This might annoy you, but your Venus has a shadow that you are probably not ready to face. I wasn't. In this video, I'm going to tell you what astrologers and feminine coaches only lightly tap on. But here we're going to go deep. And honestly, you really might not like me for it. My goal here is to shake the comfortability of the wounded feminine that you have been living in. And if you want to get to the core, the depths of your feminine magnetism and the raw power, rage that you have been suppressing, then my Venus and Lilith shadow work guide is the tool for you. This shadow work guide is literally built to help you face the shadows, face the depths of your feminine power, to face the truth that you have been avoiding, to get to the real raw truth of it, so you can truly become your most magnetic, powerful, feminine self. So that Venus and Lilith shadow work guide is £22, and the link for that is in the description box below. Hello, welcome back to my channel, and if you are new here, my name is Katerina. I guide women into the underworld of their soul and help them to step into their most magnetic, abundant, true self. So I want to give a little disclaimer before I continue with the video, because this is not for the faint-hearted. When Venus is unconscious, when she's wounded, when she's moving from a place of fear, shame, rather than love, rather than her magnetism, her pleasure, her creativity, that is when that becomes the wounded feminine. And therefore, the behaviors that Venus in the sign creates is within that insecurity. This is not how Venus is meant to operate. This is looking at Venus through a psychological lens within love and relationship attachment patterns. So if you are genuinely not ready to face the hard truths that I might give you, then save this video and come back to it when you're ready. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through Venus in every sign. I'm going to give a couple of behavior patterns that might come out from that, as well as the deep wound underneath it all. This is purely looking at the Venus sign. I'm not looking at the house, I'm not looking at the aspects, and I'm not looking at your personal chart. So if you're interested in working one-to-one with me, then I think I have one space left for June. So the link for that is in my description box below. Okay, I've got my notes, which is why I've got my glasses on. Serious, Katerina, because Venus and Aries often get shown as being impulsive, and that's because it's the first of the zodiac. But I want to go deeper here. This comes from a wound that says, if I am not chosen now, straight away, immediately, I am not actually chosen. Because they can only feel the now. The apprehensiveness of what might come is something that scares them, because delay feels like rejection in slow motion. This is where you fall in love with the pursuit more. Once you are chosen, you might lose interest. You leave because you've had that rush, but then the vulnerability needs to come. And you part ways before that vulnerability can happen. You really do love the beginning of things. You love the dating and all of that because it's exciting. But you don't stay. And you don't stay because ultimately you're protecting yourself. There's a deep wound here that is, if love is not fast and quick for you, it means that you're not wanted. So you act first. This is where you detach yourself. Now with Venus and Taurus. So Taurus often gets shown as being stubborn, but the deeper wound to all of this is your attachment through what is known and what makes you feel secure and stable. You stay because leaving feels actually terrifying. You stay in relationships that no longer work because they are predictable, and predictability is stable. You have equated comfort with intimacy. You're terrified of change, so you resist it. Even though life is moving on without you, life is moving forward, people are growing. This is where you can control the relationship and you can become possessive over it because deep down you fear change, because you see change as unstable. It is extremely terrifying to you because it feels like the floor beneath you is splitting, is shattering, is trembling, and you don't know what to do. So in your head, you say, if everything stays the same, then nobody can leave me. And then I am stable and I am secure, even if it's genuinely not feeding either of you anymore. Venus in Gemini. Now, a lot of people always say Gemini flirts, and I think it's actually really much deeper than that. If you keep moving, if you have more options, then no one can pin you down fast enough to hurt you. This is where you stay in your mind because your heart doesn't feel safe. You joke instead of expressing your feelings. You keep options open because you don't want to get too attached. You mask your feelings with telling stories, with intellectual conversations, with avoidance. You disappear once the conversation asks you to be more emotionally available. This is where you can honestly edit, you analyze, you tell people what you think they want to hear rather than speaking your truth. Because again, if you speak your truth, if you show up, if you're vulnerable, if you stop masking, then someone has the ability to hurt you. So you keep it fun, you keep it light, you keep your options open. Venus in Cancer now. So I'm going to be really honest. The wound isn't nurturing or caring or giving too much, even though that can be the behaviors. The wound here is that you have equated emotional safety with silence. You believe that they should just know. They should just know how you feel, and you should know how they feel. If I have to ask you to do something, then I do not feel emotionally known or loved. And if I love you, then I should know you to your core without even asking. This manifests itself into guilt trips. You withdraw yourself as well. You overgive, and then you feel resentful because they haven't matched that care. This is saying it's fine when it absolutely isn't. You also might test others to see if they notice if something is wrong with you, if something is up. This is where the deep, the wound is you fear abandonment so much that you have morphed yourself into the caregiver, because that is the only way that you can feel like you are needed, and if you're needed, they won't leave. So with Venus and Leo is often shown as the attention seeking. It needs that attention, it needs that validation. But the deeper wound is that you want to be uniquely seen for who you are. If they see you fully for who you are, there is an emotional satisfaction with that. So from wanting to feel so seen, this can fall into avoidance, because being fully seen asks you to expose yourself. And that can feel really unsafe. So instead of staying in vulnerability, you move into performance. You become this actress, you become this star, just to get a bit of the feeling of being mirrored, but you're not fully mirrored. You're not truly down to the deep in your core, mirrored and seen. So you end up leaving because they can't match that. And you're thinking, I haven't met someone yet who sees me, but you're not letting yourself be seen. Truly, you're avoiding. Because you are not going to the source, because you are not fully seeing yourself and therefore comfortable with showing others that like magnetic self, that is why you end up confusing being admired as a form of love. You genuinely want to be the star in their eyes. In order to do that, you have to let yourself be exposed. Really, you're avoiding that depth, because if they see you and they don't stay, then you feel like you weren't that star that you thought you were. But they were just not your keeper. They were just not your holder of your light. So with Venus and Virgo, Virgo often gets like the overcritical, the hyper perfectionist. And I feel like the deeper wound here is that the love becomes something that you must earn through how much you do, how useful you are. And the fear here is that if you let go, if you stop holding everything together and making sure it's perfect, including yourself and your emotions, my relationship, everything will fall apart. This is where love turns into something that you need to maintain, rather than being raw and open and intimate. You feel like you have to contain the relationship. You are the one that keeps it together. Oh. There's this quiet anxiety underneath it all, maybe, that manifests itself into control. Don't know why I was doing that. It manifests itself into control. You control every detail because that helps you feel like you've got control of your relationship. You've got control of the container that it's in. That you are constantly scanning for anything that you're doing that could be affecting the relationship. This might be where you actually find it really difficult to receive care, or you feel like you need to control the way that care comes. So you're not actually fully in receiving mode. You're in a receiving mode, but on my terms. You are trying to fix your relationship, make sure that it is perfect. But one little thing that comes out of the container is seen as unstable. This is where like anxious attachment style can really come out to play, because you're so anxious about not having control. Because I don't want to keep using the word control, because I don't mean that in a it's a wound of yours. It's not something that like is evil. It's not something that is with ill intent. It's something that genuinely comes from you because you're so scared of it falling apart. And the only way that you're able to manage it not falling apart is creating that contained relationship, that contained self. I have to be perfect, because if it's not perfect, if I'm not perfect, then it will just fall apart. And what's going to happen then, you know? So Venus and Libra. Now, if you've been following me, you know I have a Libra stellium, and it's 3 of my inner planets, including my sun. So I know Libra very well, and Libra is known to be like the kind of seeker of balance, the making sure everything is balanced, making sure that everything has harmony, making sure that it's keeping the peace. But because of that, you end up shaming yourself into not being truthful in case they abandon you. This isn't abandon of yourself, this is abandonment of the connection, because you value connection so much. There is a huge fear here that if I am emotionally honest, if I am genuinely myself and I say my views, if there is ever tension, it's because of me. I said something that didn't keep the peace. So what does this manifest itself into? It manifests itself into people pleasing, into keeping the peace, so you quiet. You don't say what you want to say because you're trying to preserve that peace. This is where you end up choosing people who honestly don't align with you because you weren't open in the first place. You didn't say your truths in the first place. So instead of abandoning the relationship because maybe it's just not actually for you anymore, you abandon yourself. You keep quiet. You keep people pleasing. You keep putting being liked over being true. Okay, so Venus in Scorpio, you know that I have this placement. Scorpio often gets shown as like being really intense, being too much. The deepest wound here is that if I open up fully, if I reveal the depths of my soul and you leave, I will genuinely not survive that. So what do we do when we're trying to seek depth but not be open fully? This is where love can almost become all or nothing. It's like completely avoidant or completely merging yourself into this other individual because you seek that like intense, transformational, deep love. Like deepest poetry of love is what you desire. So within this wound, you can test, seek proof by triggering jealousy. You might say something to them in order to see if they care enough to react. There can also be this tendency to show someone like everything within you, every part of you. But when they don't match that, when they don't match that depth that you've given them, it triggers this response within you that makes you feel completely unlovable and misunderstood. But I think when you're giving so much depth first, before them showing you and proving to you that they choose you, you're actually giving them all of you, so why would they choose you? You've given them every part of you without even waiting to make you feel safe. This can honestly, and I'm saying this truthfully because I have this placement, it can be where you're addicted to the conflict, the intensity, the transformational part of it. This is where you withdraw yourself because you're trying to test the relationship. You're trying to test if they actually like you enough so you have distance or silence between you to test that. But underneath it all is genuinely, if I show myself, every single part of myself, if I show the depths of my soul, and they don't match that, they don't match that with the intensity that I have brought that, then love isn't real and I will never be understood and I will never find love. I want to add this, and it's personal, but I opened up fully. I opened like the depths of my soul to someone fully, and I still wasn't chosen. And I survived that. So you can too. You can too. Venus and Sagittarius. This is where your thirst for meaning can be more important than the stability. You feel like the deepest wound here is that you feel as if there is not a constant quest for expansion of some sort, then this relationship will not be able to fuel me. I won't feel alive in this connection if there's not always growth within it. This is where, honestly, your restlessness can sometimes be mistaken for for not being compatible with the other person. You can genuinely lose interest when things become predictable. This is because that repetition, that stability, the mundane shit of your life, you view as something that has become stagnant. You're seeking expansion and excitement and growth in every aspect of that connection. This is where, honestly, this placement, you can idolize a little bit, romanticize what else is out there. You can be quite avoidant and stop yourself from making something stable. You don't want that emotional, like, the heavy part of a relationship. Because there's part of you that thinks, like, why are we talking about this? Like, why don't we go learn something else? Or like, why don't we go seek something else? Or, you know, even it could be like there's so much more for the world for us to expand than having this conversation about who left the toilet seat down. So you can really avoid that. You can become someone who feels like that emotional side of a relationship is actually something that brings you down, is quite heavy, and it's not important. You might struggle to really sit with discomfort because you actually see discomfort as something that you have to be still with. And that is a limitation for you because you're always chasing meaning, growth, philosophy. You're always wanting a shared vision. So you really do struggle to stay in love when it can feel like it's becoming ordinary. Venus and Capricorn can actually be really beautiful at creating a stable foundation within a relationship, but they have equated how much they achieve within that relationship, how much they do within that relationship, as a source of whether that relationship is actually working or not. Because ultimately, their deep fear is that this won't last. Their fear is that they have created something, they have spent time on something that is going to break and fall apart. So they don't communicate well, they don't speak their truth well, they are not vulnerable as much because they're like, well, I picked you because you're the perfect person to build this foundation with and spend the rest of our lives together based on the things that are tangible. You can often suppress your own needs. This is where you can stay in a relationship out of duty. I guess like the amount of time that you have invested into this relationship, so you stay in it. So that is where you actually become a bit resentful. You are suppressing your own needs because vulnerability feels like an actual like loss of your control, like loss of the thing that you have built. If you were vulnerable and they leave, like, oh my goodness, I've just built this foundation and it has just ended because I was vulnerable and I spoke my needs. You can also be someone who actually doesn't enter a relationship. You can almost analyze them. You can take a long time to enter a relationship, but by that time, that person might have left because you're trying to make sure that you build something that stands the test of time, that is a solid foundation, but that can make you actually quite nervous to even enter that. So this is where you could even just like not actually even enter a long-term relationship. This could be someone who ends up entering a relationship when they're older because a little bit at the beginning they were in avoidance because they put so much responsibility on their love. Venus in Aquarius. Now, this is where you equate emotional availability, you equate being like tied with someone, the closeness it takes to build that relationship. You will lose yourself. So this can be someone who creates distance between a relationship. You observe everything rather than like actually participating within it. There can honestly be a pattern of choosing unavailable people or unconventional partners because it protects your emotional, like, it protects your own space while also having a connection. Even when your love is present, even when you might have someone, you can be inconsistent. You can be emotionally available and then pull back. When you feel like they're depending on you too much or they're coming across a bit too intense, you might retract yourself. You can almost like replace the vulnerable part of a relationship with all these like ideas to do about your relationship or about love, or maybe you're you know you this might be someone who actually like also tells like gets their friends involved, so they can't be emotionally available, emotionally true, vulnerable with their partner. They might be it more with their network, with their friends. You haven't fully surrendered to the love. You have observed it and you are keeping your distance because not because you fear being left, even though that might be something that you personally go through, but this is where like you actually avoid things or you are inconsistent. You're not truthful, you're not vulnerable because your fear is actually that you will lose yourself. You will lose who you are, you will lose your freedom, you will lose sight of your goals if this becomes too dependable. Venus in Pisces. Boundaries be gone. This is you possibly like completely morph into that person, that relationship, and there are no boundaries for yourself. But not because they might not like the boundaries, but it's because you have not set them. There is a deep wound here that is if this love has not merged us together, if this love, like we are intertwined, and if we are not intertwined, then it is not love. And if we are not intertwined in each other, if we're not merged into each other, then you will leave. You can absorb their emotional self, their how they are in, what they are in, what's going on with them, what's going on with their mind. You can really absorb yourself into their own emotions, and you don't know which ones are yours and which ones are theirs. There is no boundary there. And boundary, I mean, as in like, you can hold space for them, you can hold them, and you can be there for them, but you can still get up and do what you need to do. Whereas this is like, you you don't know, like you might be feeling so anxious all the time, but it might not be your anxiety. This can be where you can be a little bit of like the healer, and with that you end up taking on people who are broken. You can take on people who are in need of rescuing. This is where the wounded partner would come in and you feel tied to them. This is genuinely where you see potential in someone rather than like what is actually in front of you. This is also where you genuinely have ruminated about the past, and you might be holding on to those things about that relationship and you haven't let them go. Or this could be, I think the other word is limerence, and this could be where you have met someone and you have created this whole story about both of you without even actually knowing who that person is. You have gone over in your mind, you have escaped into your mind about that person and about that relationship, whether for good or for bad. Whether it's you have created the story of you guys getting married after one date, or you have like thought about something that happened 10 years ago and you can't get over it. This is where you avoid confrontation, you avoid speaking to them about your needs and desires, because there is part of you that wants to like keep that emotional connection. Like I'm trying to like, it's like this two souls together, and you are scared, so you don't actually, you're not truthful, you're not emotionally real with yourself. You abandon yourself to keep that, the two souls together. Love has become something that you genuinely disappear into, and you completely abandon yourself. If you want to go deeper into this Venus wound and your specific Venus wound, as well as your Lilith wound, if you want to understand where the raw power you have been suppressing is, how to actually work with them both, how to step into your raw magnetic power. And if you want shadow work prompts that are specific for your house and sign for both Venus and Lilith, then again, my Venus and Lilith shadow work guide is down below. It's £22 and it is linked in the description box. I want to say thank you so much for watching, and I hope the light wasn't too distracted in my glasses, but I don't ever have notes when I speak, and because I can't see without my glasses, so I'm trying to make sure that I stay on track, hence the glasses. I'd love to know if this resonated with you, and let me know your Venus sign down below, and I will see you in the next video.